Hello and welcome to another episode of If My Feet Could Talk. I'm your host Owen, and today's episode is definitely not going to disappoint. The last one was amazing with Danny Slay. Again, fabulous feedback that I've had from that, and it was, although it was a long one, it was a good one, and I hope people enjoy this next episode as much. But first of all, the usual catch up with me. So what's happened since the last time we had our chat? I raced. The one streak goes on, but I raced. And so we'll quick talk about that race. It was Danny's race, in fact, off from the last Hope Festivals, Hope Trail Festival. And I did the 36-hour version, I suppose you want to do it. It's many laps, many 5 mile off-road laps, trail laps, as you can in 36 hours. And it sort of had a bit of up and down sort of results for me. It's not my first 36-hour race. It's slightly different rules compared to the other one, so the game plan is completely different. I could take as much break as I wanted on this one. That's probably where it didn't go so well for me. I managed to do the whole 36 hours. I didn't stop, as in, like, I didn't go to sleep. I did obviously take breaks, and some of the night laps was hellish. There was one in the second night, about 1 o'clock in the morning. It was probably my worst lap I've ever done. I was so slow. I was really hallucinating from the sleep deprivation. So yeah, I mean, it was pretty horrific, but I still did reasonably well. I still did a lot of miles. I did 78 miles, 75 official miles, which is not my finest results. The winner only did a few more laps than me, not many, but then he had a nice break asleep. But I was the only one not to sleep. So I am officially the only 36-hour runner in that sort of sense anyway. But it was a really, really good event and thoroughly enjoyed it. The atmosphere is great. And I'm so glad it's been taken on by GB Ultras. They're going to take it on. Wayne Drinkwater is going to keep the Trail Festival going. He is a runner of Hope in the past and stuff, and he was there. We had a good chat, and I'm so glad. Hopefully it still continues the way it's been going, because it's amazing. So yeah, but that's it really. One streak's still going. Time of recording, I'm on day 1207, so I've hit the 1200 mark a few days ago, a week ago in fact. So yes, that's still going. Otherwise, now it's time to move on with the episode. You've heard enough of me gobbing off now. So, yep, we're going to go on. And our next guest, we connected through the world of Instagram. I've known her now for a couple of years. We've never actually met in person yet, sadly. But I've gotten to know her through the world of social media. And when she mentioned recently about starting up her own podcast, I thought, you know what? I'll get her on mine and see what she thinks about podcasting and see if it's for her or not. And, you know, I'll let the world know about her more and her story. So, yeah, listeners and viewers, I give you Rachel Rutherford. And we are recording. Welcome to the podcast, Rachel. How are you doing?
Yeah, not bad, thank you. It's been a really lovely day. Nice, slow Monday. So yeah, good.
How's family? Family all well?
Yeah, oh well, my family actually live a long way from me. I live in Manchester and they all live in Southampton. So I'm going back to see them next week, which is nice.
Yeah,
So,
because I remember actually seeing you on social media go from Southampton up to Manchester and the trials and tribulations of moving all the way up to Manchester. How is Manchester compared to Southampton?
So I love it up here because I love the outdoors and like Peak District on my doorstep. Southampton's not quite got enough green space for me down there. It's very built up, and so I love it up here. But obviously, it's a long way from my family. So probably eventually, I'll probably venture more that way. But at the moment, I just love the countryside up here.
Yeah, but you've got the New Forest and obviously the South Downs and stuff that aren't wholly that far away from Southampton.
No, they're not, but they're also not quite the same.
No, yeah, they're not quite the same as that.
No, they're not quite the same. But yeah, no, there are some gorgeous places down there, but they're just not quite as magical for me as up here.
So for those of you, for those that don't know who you are, Rachel, can you just shed a little info on who you are, what you do, just so people can get to know you a bit more?
So my name is Rachel. I am originally born in the New Forest in Hythe, and I've kind of gradually made my way up the country to Manchester through uni and work. I got into running when I was 17 as a sort of get a bit fit when I joined the Air Cadets, and I kind of just got the love from there. So kind of just decided to get a bit fitter. I currently live in Manchester. I'm a buyer at the co-op, so I really enjoy my job. Really happy we're back in the office now, and it's just about finding the balance for me. So yeah.
When you say buyer at co-op, that's not someone who just goes to co-op and just
that would be
buys random stuff off the shelf. You go searching for the products and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I buy chilled drinks in the food to go area, so where you get your meal deal from. So I buy juices, smoothies, milkshakes, and iced coffee at the co-ops. Everything you see on the shelf is kind of under my domain, and I choose that range. Obviously, a bit more to it than just that, but that's ultimately what you see.
What got you into that then?
So I actually left uni and I was on the supply chain graduate scheme at Rolls-Royce. For many reasons, it didn't really quite work out for me. It wasn't quite the right environment and culture. And I actually left and I became a PT for a while and worked at David Lloyd. And then sort of a bit of a tangent again, worked at a company called Outkit as like a buying assistant and merchandiser, and quite enjoyed it. So naturally just sort of progressed from there.
Okay, so you had quite a range of jobs, and obviously this one's taken you all the way to Manchester.
I'm a bit of a believer in not stopping until you find what it is that you want, and whether this is my forever job, I'm still not quite decided, but I enjoy it. So
fair enough. So obviously you said you were brought up in Southampton and the New Forest and stuff like that. Were you a sporty child at school? Did you do any of? Did you get involved in any sporting sort of clubs or anything?
Not really when I was younger. So I like most children, I swam, and probably around the age of 13 or 14, I started to get into competitive swimming. So I swam for City of Southampton Swimming Club for a while, but my mum, in the end, when I got to the sessions that started at 5:30, was a bit like, I'm not getting up for that. So there's no way you're getting there. So I think we're going to have to call this a day. So, and looking back now, I'm quite glad we did. But at the time, obviously, it was a bit frustrating. And then once I left swimming, I kind of didn't do anything fitness wise, except from like the family bike rides at the weekend, 2-mile loop around the forest, etc. And it wasn't until I was 16 and 17, just left school, I joined the Air Cadets, and I think it just made me realize quite how unfit I was. And I just started running, and obviously couch to 5K, it was so hard. I remember like leaving the house and after 30 seconds being absolutely on the floor because it was so hard, and I just kind of stuck with it. And I remember there being quite a few arguments with Dad when he'd take me out, and it was just so hard, and he'd be like, oh, we're over halfway there, and I'd be like, oh my god, I thought we were back. And so yeah, no, I wasn't at all. I got into it when I was about 16.
You just mentioned Dad. Was your dad a a sporting sort of inspiration to you? Was he well into his sports?
So my dad has always been really active. So he ran when he was younger. He plays football. Then he got a road bike, and I think in a way I've kind of also inspired him a bit to do other things. And unfortunately, he's hurt his back. But I remember when I got into my Ironmans and things, like when I went to Tenby, he came and supported, and I could tell he really wanted to do one. So I think it's kind of bounced a bit, but definitely my dad is definitely been a bit of a motivator, because the other thing that I did a lot of was windsurfing, and he was the one who kind of got us into that. So definitely.
Nice. So you mentioned you started running at 17, and you started with the Couch to 5K program, which a lot of us start our running journey on at some point in our life, some further down the line than others. You mentioned that first sort of run was quite hard. I don't think there's many people that would disagree with that. But what was your first thoughts of lacing up those trainers and stepping out for the first time?
Do you know what? It's a very long time ago now, but I think I am someone who, once I set my mind on something, I absolutely go after it. So I think it was just another goal. I think I needed something in my life that wasn't education to kind of focus and go after. And I guess it feels quite empowering, because you know you're doing something good for yourself. You know it's going to be hard, but I think what I loved about Couch to 5K is that you had a plan to follow, and it was easy. So you could look at it and go, oh, 4 times 30 seconds, I can do that. And that's what I really liked about that. It was almost like an achievable plan. And I think that kind of spread through a lot of what I've done since then as well. It's just breaking it down. And I guess I was quite excited because I knew it was manageable.
So with the Couch to 5K program, do you think there's too many 5K Couch to 5K programs out there for people to choose from? And they're not all the same. They're not like every single one. It's just got a different name to it.
Yeah.
There's loads of different varieties of Couch to 5K. Do you think there's too many of them out there?
Yeah, I think it's quite a simple like idea, isn't it? I mean, you don't need more than one. It's just a gradual build each week. I think the only thing is that depending on your fitness is where you start on it, because I was really unfit, so started right at the bottom, right at the start, and 30 seconds was all I could do. But if, for example, like when I got back into running this year, I wasn't as unfit as I was back then, so I wouldn't need to start right at the beginning. And I think it's just that adaptation for where you are. And I think you just need one. I think I can't remember which one I used. I probably used the NHS one. I think you just need one.
And have you ever had to go back onto it to start over again because you had a big injury or a big break?
So the only big injury, call it an injury I've had is this year. So I stopped running for, I think it was about 4 or 5 months in the end this year. But I've built the running back up very gradually alongside the other sports. So I haven't had to go on to the Couch to 5K, but I have brought it back very, very slowly. And when I say slowly, I mean more length of running. Like I've not been able to run that far. So starting out with like 2-mile runs and things, and just slowly building it back.
So what was when you completed that 5K eventually, did you do a race, or was it a park run, or what did you do, or was it just a 5K run?
So basically my biggest memory was when I ran for 8 minutes. That was my biggest, like I can remember the corner that I was on when I did it, and I was just felt so much, I think, like pride and being like, oh my goodness, I never thought I'd do this. But me and my stepdad used to go to the gym, so he would run next to me, and I think my biggest achievement, he would run 4K and I would do 5. So obviously I made it to 5, and that was amazing. But he would sometimes do 5K and he always did it in less than half an hour. And my biggest achievement that I remember was doing it in less than half an hour and beating him. And I think that's one of my biggest memories of it. And yeah, it's a long time ago now, but at different points in your journey, I think that's what's so special about running and sport, is that it's so different for all of us, what we what we get joy out of. So for me now, it's not about being able to run a sub 25k, because I just can't do that. But it's little achievements like being able to go, oh, I just ran for an hour, and being really pleased with that, regardless of what speed it was. And I think that's what's so amazing about sport. It's so individual to all of us.
So was there a why, well, apart from just fitness, is there a why you run now?
Oh, massively. So it's less for fitness now than it was. I think for me now, it's about that total balance thing. So I love running and I love cycling, and I've grown to love swimming a lot as well, because it's the one that's the most relaxing. And during my time this year, it's where I started, because it takes a lot less out of the body. But running for me is definitely about, obviously you've got fitness in there, but it's about the freedom. And it's the one of the three sports that you can go out and you can run for just 3 miles and get back and feel so much different and kind of leave it all out there. So, and I think the other thing for me is the social relationships it brings you. It's when you're active, you kind of just flock to people that are like that. And there's so much. And I think obviously for me as well, with my Instagram account, is just the amount of people that I've been able to inspire for so many different reasons. And at the same time, the support I've got from them, I think it's been quite priceless, like with all the eating disorder recovery and things, like how much people's words help when you're having a bad day. So I think that's what I'm most grateful for with running.
So what was your first running event?
So obviously I did a park run. I remember doing that because I did 22 minutes and I was over the moon. This was very, very early on. And then I'm going to share my favorite one. It was the Sheffield Half Marathon. So I haven't actually done that many actual pure runs, but that was one of my absolute favorites. I lived in Sheffield for 6 months and I did that one a few years in a row. But I also did the Southampton Marathon, and I ran it in 3:17. It was in 2018. And I think that's got to be one of my proudest achievements, because I'd had an injury leading up to it. So I hadn't really trained properly, and just to get around it was incredible. And I think that was the year then that I signed up for my Ironman. I think it was just kind of that belief that I knew I could do it.
So was the Southampton Marathon your first marathon?
First marathon, yes, definitely, and first and only. Well, except for the Ironman.
Apart from obviously the ones, in the Ironman. But how was that first time of standing on the start line of a marathon?
So when I do things, I very much break them up in my head, and I think it's a technique that I've used all the way through. So Southampton Marathon's a 2-lapper, and you break that up to two half marathons. And when I'm on the start line, I try not to think about what's ahead of me. So when I was on the start line at Wales, I was speaking to the people around me to try and distract myself. And you properly just break it down and you just don't think too far ahead, because you overwhelm yourself. And I always go into a race and thinking whatever will be. I don't go in going, oh, this is a race, I need to get that PB today, because I always just think what will happen. And I think that takes a lot of the pressure off myself.
And what was the feeling like when you finally crossed that line?
Oh, it was
3
amazing.
hours.
I can remember it so well. Like obviously you get the sprint over the finish, because you've got this energy that just comes from nowhere. And then my dad somehow had found himself in the finishing area with the t-shirts, and the handing out the bananas. And when I said I had an injury, like I shouldn't have ran that day. And it was in my back, so I couldn't walk properly when I crossed the finish line. And he had a micro scooter, and I just remember it so well, like scooting off. And it was incredible. Like, and I came second. It was second or third female that year, so I got a little trophy as well. And it was just one of the most amazing experiences ever.
Amazing. So you've already sort of touched base on it, but when did you start getting into the world of triathlon and so forth?
So when I was at university, my best friend and my ex at the time, and all of my friends for that matter, they cycled. So we always cycled to the cinema, we'd cycle to go windsurfing, and I always had this really clunky mountain bike, and my best friend back then, he got a road bike, and my ex also had one, and they would cycle around and I'd just be there on my little really clunky bike and not being able to keep up. So eventually I also got a road bike, and we would kind of like, the three of us would go off cycling around Birmingham and then join the uni cycling club. And through that, I ended up on this session, a classroom session around psychology and sport. And I met a lady called Louie, and she was doing Ironman UK that year. And I was like, I have got to do one of those one year. And then I remember the coach of the triathlon club at Birmingham said to me, they were like, that you'll know when you're ready. And I was just sat on the sofa one night in 2018, and I just was like, right, this is the year, I'm going to sign up for Wales. And I just did there and then. And obviously it's a lot of money, so I was kind of like, huh. So I just did it. And then my friend Toby, he came along with me to Wales, and it was incredible. And my mum and my dad also came, but very last minute. And I mean, the training wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, but you just got to be dedicated, I think. And I just really enjoyed it. Like, it was honestly amazing. Wales was, I've done 3. So I've done Wales, Lanzarote, where I got my Kona slot, and then the Ironman World Championships. And in terms of like race experience in the crowds, Wales was by far the most amazing of all 3 of them.
So you touched a little bit there, being expensive.
Yeah.
Ironman, it is known as quite an expensive event. Do you think that stops a lot of potential iron athletes, especially youngsters coming through, that could, be especially in climates like today, could be future stars?
Absolutely. I have to say, it's not my friend Jasmine, so she's into it as well, and she's going to Kona and St George this year, which are the World Championships, and she's already been to the other one earlier this year. And when you actually think about how much that's going to cost, it's extreme, and I wouldn't be able to afford it. I mean, Kona was kind of like absolute max, but worth it for the experience. But when you think a race entry to Ironman costs £600, really, and then you've got to get a bike, and you want a decent bike because you don't want to be going around on a really cheap bike, because it's just going to make your day really hard. So if you're looking at 1,000 for a bike, and then if you do it abroad, you've got flights. I mean, I reckon to do it cheap, you're still looking at 2K, and that's not a small undertaking for a lot of people. And so, yeah, I do truly believe that. And then to add on to it, if you do win and you go to the World Champs, I reckon we spent about 5K in Kona to go to Kona. So it's not even remotely affordable. And I think it's a shame, because not only are they amazing events, but there are some really amazing people that just don't get the opportunity to race. But that being said, I don't think any triathlon's really cheap. So I have a spot in the Team GB age group team, and it sounds great, and it is. It's obviously a big thing to be able to represent GB, but the tri-suit alone, by the time I've got my name on, it's £200, and you have to race in that tri-suit.
Wow.
And it is. I do appreciate how lucky I am to be able to do that, but it comes at an expense of something else for me, because I have to pay for it. So, and then you've got the race entry on top of that, and then flights, because it's in Bilbao. It's not a cheap undertaking, and you've almost got to dedicate your life to it. So yeah, I do. I think you've either got to be in a very fortunate position, or you've got to give everything else up to be able to do it. And I think it is a real shame.
So, thinking about it, then, like I said, we go off on tangents here, but I've got no Ironman experience apart from friends that have done it. I've never taken part, but I've always known it to be quite expensive and everything else. Do you think there is any way an event organizer could put one on cheaper, but obviously not see themselves off?
So there are non-branded Ironman triathlons in the UK. I know Outlaw's definitely cheaper than Ironman, and there are some abroad events as well that are quite a bit cheaper, but I think you do pay for the brand with Ironman. And we were actually having a discussion about this last night, but Ironman, they do put on amazing events, and I think there's something, you see people walking around with the Ironman tattoo.
Have you got one?
I haven't, no.
What? You've done 3
No,
and you haven't
I'm a
done what?
fate.
Wow.
Yeah, so I think there is some, you can do it cheaper,
Yeah.
but it depends what your goal is, because as you were saying earlier about potential aspiring athletes, the World Championships are in Ironman. So if
Yeah.
you're trying to make it, you really need to be going after it in Ironman. And yeah, it's one of the things that I'd like to do later in life, and whether I'm be able to do it or not is sort of have a bit of a charity kind of fund that focuses more on girls than guys, because I think that's
Yeah.
where the lack of opportunity is, but give some of these people the opportunity to be able to go and do some of these things. I think it would just be amazing.
You mentioned the outlaw triathlon, and
Yeah.
I don't know if you know Sid Sadowski.
No.
No, look him up on Instagram. Right, he's a legend. He managed to complete outlaw on a BMX,
Oh wow.
and he ran the marathon section in a morph suit.
I love that. That's great.
So yeah, they actually allowed him to do to ride his BMX for it.
That
And
must be tough.
he said it was hard work.
Yeah. Imagine.
But yeah, he's sort of he's not quite there in the head, bless him. But I love it. I met him at Equinox 24.
Another easy one.
And that's how I got to know him. But yeah, he doesn't like to do things the easy way. And you obviously mentioned obviously World Championships and stuff, and we'll go into your World Championships. But on another tangent, have you been keeping up with the Alistair's Ironman journey at the moment? He seems to be doing quite well.
Yeah, obviously he's just got his slot for Kona. Triathlon is a very exciting area at the moment, because the Professional Triathlete Organization has really kind of stepped into the forefront of triathlon this year, and there's been a lot of events they've put on where they pay the winners quite a lot of money. So at the first one this year, the 2 winners got 100 grand, and I think it's in all the way down to 10th place. Wow. There's a big prize money there, which actually almost makes it something that you can make a living out of. And I know for a fact that the prize money with Ironman isn't that great, and I think it's going to be really exciting, because the events are really exciting as well, because as you can understand, they get a really great turnout from the really big pros, because there's something that with the prize money, and I think that's going to really come into the forefront over the next few years, and it's going to be interesting to see where they take that.
And how do you think Alistair's going to fare in Kona?
I honestly don't know. It's a big part of me wants Christian Blumenfeld to win it again, though, because he's just amazing, and I'm a follower. So yeah, but I imagine he'll do very well. He's an insane athlete, isn't he?
Yeah. Do you think Jonathan's going to follow him now? He's coming towards the end of his triathlon career.
Do you know what? I don't know. I honestly don't know the answer to that one, because he's still in Super League, so he's obviously still really strong. And part of me thinks he might take a different journey, because they've obviously done a lot together, haven't they? And I think he's probably enjoying not living in sort of Alistair's shadow at the moment. And I wonder if that's where it will take him next, is something a bit different, because there's so much out there now. It doesn't just have to be Ironman. There's so many things going on.
And as you said, the triathlon at the moment is quite an exciting event when it comes to the elites, the Super League, and obviously the Olympics and stuff like that. We've got quite a strong women and males team at the moment. It's quite
women's sport. I think it's triathlon for women's sport is one of the most exciting places, because there is such a great lineup of amazing women, and I think triathlon ends up being a sport a lot of people get into, because you definitely see a lot less injuries in triathlon with the cross training. So I think it's going to become even more exciting.
And I think the mixed relays is really, for the spectators watching at home, I think it's really brought triathlon, to the forefront when it comes to elite sport. So you mentioned you went to Kona. For those that don't know what Kona is and why it's a big thing, can you explain what Kona is, first of all?
Yeah, so Kona is in Hawaii. It's one of the most amazing places in the world. It's like paradise. So they hold the Ironman World Championships there every year. Obviously it's had a break for 2-3 years because of COVID, but basically you have to come first in your age group at any Ironman throughout the country, and you can qualify for a slot to go to the Ironman World Championships. You have to pay for it. It is very expensive, and the race entry for it was £800 or £900, so it's very expensive. But it is honestly one of the best things I've ever done, and I think just going to Hawaii is something I probably never would have done. So
which island is it on?
It's on Kona.
It's on Kona. Is it an island actual called Kona?
I think it's. Do you know what? I think it's called Kona. I'm pretty sure we flew into Kona.
Let's have a quick Google. You got your phone there? Go on. We'll get it.
I'll have a little quick look.
See, I've been to Hawaii, but I've only been to Oahu, the main island.
It is Kali Kona. Yeah, it's a town on the west coast of Hawaii. It's on the Big Island.
Yeah. So it's all right.
So yeah, which makes sense. Now I feel silly.
That's all right. I don't think I've heard of an island called Kona. I've heard obviously Oahu and stuff because I've been there. Hawaii is a phenomenal place. I think it's slightly overhyped, as in like. I don't know. Obviously if you put your obviously World Championship experience aside, and I think Hawaii is slightly overrated. Yeah, but it is beautiful, and the people there are probably the nicest Americans I've come across.
So we went to Kona, then we went to Honolulu. So we did an island hop. Honolulu was not magical. Kona was. Yeah. Because of the beaches, and we went up the volcanoes. Yeah. I mean, we had a guide up the volcanoes. It was literally absolutely amazing. Yeah, Honolulu wasn't quite as special, but Ironman World Champs, yeah. So you've got all the people of Kona. They literally live for this event once a year. It's amazing.
No wonder 800-900 quid a pop. You know
yeah. I mean? And yeah, coming over that finish line is probably the biggest relief I've ever had, because I had a really hard race that day. I didn't feel fresh from the start, and as you can imagine, a race that long when you're not feeling fresh it's a long way. But I also met one of my really good friends, Jasmine, there on the bike, because we were both rolling in pain. So yeah, it was just incredible.
So how did you qualify to get to the World Championship?
So I qualified at Lanzarote the same year. Lanzarote had been the race that I'd always wanted to do, Ironman Lanzarote, because it was known as the hardest one out of all of them on the calendar. And I'd also been on a cycling training camp there a couple of years before, and I just really wanted to, you just got something you need to tick off, and it was there. So yeah, that was where I got my spot. It was I think that's probably, in terms of like joy, that was the most amazing of all three, because obviously when I crossed the line and I knew I'd done it, it's just, yeah.
And you said you had to finish first in your age category, is that right?
Yeah. So I think it was I was in the 18 to 24 then. And yeah, you have to finish first in your age group. But that race was most special for me because I ran the whole marathon. And
so let's go back, the 18 to 24. Yeah. So basically the actual youngsters of that event.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Not the old people where times are slower and people are slower. The more faster, nippier.
Yeah. So yeah, 18 to 24 is challenging, but not as hard as when you get to 25 onwards, because I think when you're 18 to 24, there's not many people that enter at that age group, because it's first, it costs a fortune, and you have to compromise on a lot of other things going on in your life.
You're not going to tell me you were the only one in that age category, are you?
That time, no. That would be the dream. But I think, to be honest, the thing that made me go for Lanzarote was when I was at Wales, there were 9 people in my age group and I came second. Yeah. And I think that was the point when I was kind of like, I know I can do it, because at Wales, I was on my road bike and the girl who won it was on her TT bike, really aero. And if I'd had that bike, I'm confident I'd have won that day. Yeah. And I think that was kind of what made me think, no, I can definitely get there.
So you weren't the spot, you qualified, and then you flew out to Hawaii. The sands are golden, the blues are sea, everyone's doing the hula. What was the World Championship like for you? Let's go start. What was the start like for you? How did it go with the swim?
So the swim, I remember it was like a I want to call it a tailwind, but it was like, and then it was really choppy coming in. then it's amazing because you've got all these Hawaii, all the volunteers are coming in, they're like whacking sun cream on you, and you're out onto the bike, and the bike was, it was so windy. It's so much hillier than I thought it would be. And it's quite a lonely bike course because it's like a long way out and a long way back. So you're like 56 miles
Yeah,
out.
it's not short laps, no.
So you don't see anybody except from the people handing you bottles. So it's very lonely. And then the run, again, a really lonely run course. You're 26 miles out along the main roads, and then it starts getting dark and you're running in the pitch black. And I have to say, it was a really hard day, but when you get to the end and you see that finish line and you see a family waiting for you and you know you've done it, it's one of the most amazing feelings. And it was extra special as well because they kind of gave you the special Hawaii lays and things. You got all of that when you finished across the finish line, and yeah, it was incredible.
So obviously you finished the Ironman, you did the arms up in the air,
Oh yeah,
all that sort of stuff, yeah?
yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. And yeah, it's quite cool as well because Jasmine, we kind of played a bit of leapfrog on the run, but I think she finished just in front of me. So her name's on the big screen as I'm coming over the finish line, which is quite nice.
And after the finish, once you've come down from the adrenaline, the endorphins, the serotonin, once all that is suddenly it's gone through your body, how were you afterwards? Was it a bit of an anticlimax, or were you still on cloud nine?
But the next day you can't walk. Like, I think that's one of the biggest memories of Ironman is the level of like DOMS you get, like the delayed onset muscle. So, it's next level, like honestly next level. And we actually flew from Kona to Honolulu the next day. And I have to say, it's one of the most painful days of traveling I've ever had with all of our stuff. But yeah, I think that it takes you a while to come down off that high though, because I don't think I came down off of it but till we got home, because it was amazing.
So have you seen as a photograph recently of the Comrades Marathon that's just happened last weekend? Have you seen what they make them do when they finish?
No.
The massive like stadium set of steps to get out after they just ran 90 kilometers.
That's brutal.
Let's get them up a set of steps out of a stadium. Your Dom thing there just made me think of that. I thought that's cruel. So you've done the World Championships. You also mentioned earlier that you qualified for GB age group.
Yeah.
Is that in triathlon or?
Yes, it was in triathlon, and I actually got that spot just before COVID, but it's been cancelled for 2 years. And I think obviously we're going to go on to talk about it in a minute, but I was a bit touch and go as to whether I was actually going to race it this year. And I'm going to go, but I'm not racing it. I'm just going to go and enjoy the day because I've obviously already paid for it and I've got the suit and things. So I'm just going to go and enjoy it. But yeah, I qualified for that in 2019 at the Vitruvian Triathlon in Nottingham. So yeah, I think it's just one of these. It's one of those.
What age group's that?
So I'm in the 25 to 29 now, so the really competitive one.
So you're in the harder one.
I'm in the hard one now. I'm definitely not fit enough for the hard one, so let's go and enjoy it. Really.
That's amazing, and I hope you do go, and I hope you do enjoy it and make some memories out of going there.
Definitely.
But obviously that brings us on to something that you've recently started to talk about, and it's a common thing, but it's not commonly spoken about. No. I don't think, and that's your eating disorder. So let's talk about that. What eating disorder do you have to start with? What?
So it's kind of morphed over the years. So I know that I actually started suffering from it when I was about 17. So when I got into running, naturally I started to lose weight. Actually didn't change my diet at all to begin with. I just carried on as I was. I was slightly overweight, and had I not changed my diet, I would have just been fine. And by running I would have lost the little bit I needed to. But it became, they say eating disorders are actually a genetic thing, and once you start that weight loss, it kind of kickstarts it. But I would say I got it when I was 17, and luckily for me, I call it luckily, by the time I'd managed to get an appointment at the eating disorder clinic, I'd sort of gained the weight and was off to uni, and I was okay. But while I was at uni, through stresses, it kind of went up and down. I was in quite a bad relationship and there's lots of stress. And I remember being at Rolls Royce, and it was actually signing up for my Ironman that gave me the sort of kick I needed to put some weight on, that proper weight to be able to do Ironman Wales. And for a few years I was okay. I mean, I wouldn't say I was fully recovered mentally, but in terms of my functioning body, I was fine. But I actually developed a bad habit of eating a lot of fruit, and that was kind of I guess my eating disorder. What it morphed into was, I guess you might call it orthorexia, which is fear of foods that you perceive to be bad, and that really clean diet. And I decided at the start of last year that I was going to sort that out and get rid of the fruit. And it sounds silly, but eating disorders tend to have something that isn't rational to most people. A lot of the thoughts are unrational. And slowly I began to lose weight, and then weight I shouldn't have lost to begin with. So it was obviously quite scary for my family. And I then had a lot of stress going on at work. I'd bought a house that needed a full refurb, and I just had stresses everywhere. I'd moved to Manchester in the middle of lockdown. I didn't know anybody. And as a result, I just started moving all the time. So if I wasn't swimming or running or biking, I was out for a walk, and the weight just kept falling and falling and falling. And as I got smaller, it became even harder to actually be able to do anything about it. So last year, it definitely morphed into more of an anorexia kind of thing. And it was around November. I kind of was at a work event, and I looked in the mirror, and I just had this moment of, oh my goodness, what have you done? And it was kind of my kick to start getting better. And it has been a really tough year. I started by not cutting out the exercise, and I carried on, but it became quite obvious in January I wasn't going to be able to carry on doing that. And I don't know whether it was COVID mixed in as well, but from January to probably around May, June, I've just had a really high level of fatigue. And it could be after 4 or 5 years, my body just being like, no, enough's enough, I need a rest. Or it could be mixed in with long COVID, but it wasn't until June that I actually started to feel in a place where I actually had energy to live. And so I actually made the decision, it was probably middle of January, to completely cut exercise out. Now, I haven't had, for context, probably more than 2 or 3 days off since I started running. No, it wouldn't have been when I was running, because I only ran 3 days a week. Since I started cycling at uni, so my second year in uni, when I would have been 19, 20, I haven't had more than 2 days off of exercise. So it was a big thing for me this year. And I then was kind of in this place where I either made it public, because I had quite a few worried friends being like, are you okay? Or whether I just completely disappeared. But I think I knew how much sort of influence and spread I have on the internet to use it for a thing of good. And I hope that some people have taken some positives from, not positives, but some people have used it as motivation to, or awareness, or has helped them realize that they might also have a problem. Because I think what the last probably more 3 months has shown me is how much you really need to be eating to fuel, especially at my age, to fuel a really active lifestyle. And it's kind of shocked me. And I think from that, I've kind of then seen that potentially it's a bigger issue than we like to believe. Whether it's an eating disorder or it's just not fueling your training adequately, it doesn't have to be on purpose. It all has the same effect on the body. So
what was the trigger? What was the actual trigger for you to go, enough is enough?
So all year I'd been saying to my family, oh, I'm eating more, but I was eating so much, marginally more, that it wasn't doing anything. And then I got to the point where the night of the Pioneer Awards, which is what the event at work, I was so tired and anxious and shaky that I didn't think I was gonna be able to make it to the event. If I hadn't had my makeup and stuff being paid for and done, I probably wouldn't have been able to go. And the whole evening I was so cold and sat in my massive coat, and everyone else was there in just in a dress. And I left early to go to bed, and then I didn't sleep, and I came home the next day and I had a breakdown. I was on the phone to one of my really good friends, and I was just like, I just don't want to do this anymore, and I literally just wanted it over. And I think at that point I knew I had a decision to make, and I decided that I knew there was a good life back out there, but where I was right now wasn't it. And I knew it'd be a long journey to get back there, back to where I wanted to be. And the first 2 weeks I kind of like stuck my toe in, and I was eating more, but it wasn't breaking the rules that I'd made for myself around food and different things. And then I was on the phone to, it was actually Jasmine I was on the phone to, and I'd bought some Seeded Sensations bread, and this is going to sound like a really weird trigger, but I hadn't let myself have it because it didn't fit in my calories for the day. And I was like, I can't have it. And she was like, well, you can, you're the only one stopping you. And I was like, well, I can't have it now, it's 10 o'clock at night. And she was like, no, you can. She was like, there's no time scales on food. And I kind of sat there and I was just thinking, like, these rules are all ridiculous, they don't make sense. And so that's just triggered something in my head that I don't even know what it was. But you know, when you have those random moments of realization. And from the next day I decided to go after this, it's called an all-in approach, where you just eat. And it's really hard, and it wasn't easy, and it still isn't easy, but I knew what I needed to do. And it took probably 2 months before I started gaining any weight, which puts into perspective quite how much damage I'd done to my body.
So how heavy were you at your lightest?
I got down to 44 kilos. So
Wow.
not big at all. I'm very tiny. And it's...
And how tall are you?
5'1", 2, one of those. So
you look bigger in your pictures. So 44 kilograms at just over 5 foot. Yeah, that's not a lot, is it?
And I'm naturally quite curvy. My body is naturally, I'm quite, I wouldn't say I'm big boned, but I'm not built to be that slim. And
no.
Yeah, so it's been a journey, and I'm 16, 17 kilos heavier now. And it's getting used to that. It's quite hard because I've done it quite quickly. My mindset around it is it's going to be hard whether you do it quick or slow. So why take 4 years to get it back on? I want to get back to my life. And I'm at the point now where I can start going back out on my bike and things, but it's finding that balance between actually listening to my body when it says I'm tired. And that's the hard bit for me. It's learning that I do this and I do it for enjoyment now. So until I'm back firing 100%, I'm not out doing massive speed sessions. I'm doing it purely because I enjoy it, and it's a very different way to look at sport for me.
Because I think you're the third female I've had on this podcast now that's had some form of eating disorder.
Yeah.
With Holly Stables and Mimi Anderson. They mentioned their struggles with food and stuff. And obviously Holly Stables was an elite athlete.
Yeah.
And she had her eating disorder during a elite part of her life and career. So I think it's good that we're getting people to talk about their life issues, not just obviously their mental health, but their struggles with food.
Yeah.
I mean, I struggle with food. I'm the opposite. You know, I comfort eat a lot, and my weight fluctuates all the time depending on what I'm training and stuff like that. You know, so men need to start talking about
Agreed.
their eating habits a lot more, because women are always on the internet shown this is the perfect body, this is what they should look like, or this is what an athlete should be. But men is just you never have that same sort of thing. You get women saying, oh, we love a dad bod, but you never get the other way, the mum bod. But you always get ripped men, and that's what's seen as how it should be. So,
and it's quite unrealistic. I think that's the thing, is in, like, we're given a body, and our body is our body. So for me, I know this can sound ridiculous. I don't like my ribs because they're slightly bigger than I want them to be. But someone said to me once, they were like, "What are you going to do? Cut a rib out?" And it's kind of, I mean, it sounds quite funny, but it's that whole thing. If you have to accept your body for what you've got, and you can't change the fundamentals of your body. And I think for me, I just kind of realized that if I'm spending all of my time saying no to going out for dinner or worrying about my weight to the extent where I won't join in, you're missing so many opportunities in life. And I've done that for so many years. Like, I wouldn't have had cake at my birthday. I didn't enjoy Christmas because I wouldn't let myself have anything. And going out for dinner, I'd never go out for dinner with my family. And when I look back at all those like missed opportunities, it's massive. And what was I actually seeking? Because your body's the one you're going to have when you're 50, 60 years old. And I just hope that I've saved it in time, that
Yeah.
I don't have problems later in life. But I think so much pressure is put on us by society to be a certain size, and diet culture is so big in this country. And I think you are right. I think there is more focus on women because I think we outwardly show the pressure it more than the men do. But things that we just see it everywhere now, like low calorie this, low calorie that.
So yeah, speaking of that, so do you think the way food's labeled nowadays, with obviously the green, the red,
Yeah,
this, you go to a restaurant, this has got so many calories and stuff like
I
that.
hate it.
Do you think that was the right way to go to help obesity?
No, I don't. I think education is where you need to go. I don't think you can ever force someone to do anything they don't want to do. I think awareness is great. I think, but we're all not naive enough to know that there are quite a few more calories in a chocolate bar than there are a carrot. And I think that it's taken it too far. I really do. I mean, I think everything can balance. That's kind of the way I like to try and go with it now. But I don't think you can make people do what you want. And the government have gone wrong with that. I think what they need to do is more education from when children are young around how to fuel your body and what gives you energy and what's good for you, and moderation. And I think you can't, it's a bit like, I'm not sure if you heard of this HFSS that's coming in around where they're allowed to promote chocolate and high sugar foods and high fat foods in shops now. So you can't promote them on the end of aisles anymore. You can't promote them when you walk into the store, and you're almost,
It just makes like food is bad for you, instead of it being treated as a fuel and a nice tasting fuel, as long as you don't whack too much in so your tank doesn't overflow like you would do with petrol. Food should never be treated as a bad thing,
No.
which is one thing I don't like about the certain diet company that labels things as sins.
Agreed.
Because food is not a sin.
No.
It isn't a sin. Food's like anything. Food's only bad for you. Same with alcohol. If you consume too much, over a long period of time and keep consuming and over consuming. Children should, and I agree with you, should be educated, and adults should be educated in a way where they can have fun with food, they can fuel themselves properly with food, they can enjoy food as food should be enjoyed.
Exactly.
And not scared of having Christmas dinner, not scared of having a birthday cake. I love cake. I'll fight anyone for cake, but it shouldn't be treated that way. We shouldn't be scaring people from eating.
Yeah.
And we all know it's to lose weight, excess calories got to be burnt off. That's by moving, being active.
It's an active lifestyle, isn't it? And an active lifestyle needs to be fueled. And that's where I think a lot of the obesity prices we have in this country, I don't think it's actually necessarily due to the food. I think it's due to the inactivity, and that's part of the battle. Because if you're
but then
active,
we come back to our discussion about the price of Ironman as an example. You bring that down to grassroots, where luckily we now have events like Parkrun Junior and Parkrun, which is free at the point of entry for people to do, but there's not enough of it.
No.
And there's not enough free grassroots activities for kids outside of school. And they don't do enough in school anymore. PE lessons have gone down. I noticed that with my son's PE lessons. What did you do in PE? Oh, we sort of stood there and threw a ball to each other type thing. And it's just like, that's not really being active, you know. And they do it once a week, maybe twice if they're lucky. You know, they should be doing it, you know, PE
Daily.
once a day.
Yeah.
In some form. But that's, you know, that's another argument that's moved us on. But obviously I've seen and we bring it back to you now. I've seen obviously your progress in regards to your eating disorder and where you are now compared to where you were when you finally decided, you know, I'm going to go public. I'm going to try and highlight my struggles, etc. You've come a long way, really, haven't you? Both mentally, and physically.
Yeah.
Are you proud of yourself?
I am. I don't take enough time to look back. I think sometimes, and when I'm so I've had a particularly hard week. Like, it's better this week, but the last 2 weeks, and I very much catastrophizing, like everything's bad again, etc., etc. But when I do take a proper look back and think about how far I've come, I guess yes, I am, because I never thought I'd actually be able to do it, and I think I have to be proud about that. I think if I was actually being honest, it's probably one of the things I'm most proud of in my life, because it is the hardest thing that I've done. Like, it almost makes an Ironman look easy. So yeah, I guess I am.
And now you're being active for fun at the moment and for enjoyment and for yourself. What's the most fun thing about it? What is making your heart melt when it comes to exercise now?
It's just being outside, and like being back on my bike and actually feeling strong. And I think that is probably the biggest thing, is feeling strong. And when I'm out there, I don't feel dizzy, I don't feel weak. I know I'm not doing any damage to my body, and I'm just enjoying it. And it's very, very different to how it has been for the last year and the year before. And almost feeling like I've earned it. I know that sounds silly, but I've got to that point where, because I had all that time off, I feel grateful to be able to do it now. It's not something I'd ever want to compromise again.
And then obviously now you're moving on and you're starting to get the enjoyment back into your activities and stuff like that. And is there any form of is there any races you've got that you're just going to end? Obviously you mentioned the GB vest. Is there any other ones that you've got planned? You're just going to go along for the crack?
So I actually have an entry to the 70.3 Barcelona as well, but I've actually decided not to do that one this year. I'm going to lose that race entry, but for my own health, I've decided it's the right thing. And I think that's the image I kind of want to put out, is that it's okay sometimes to not force yourself. But I want to probably do a sprint triathlon. I've missed the rest of them this year, but early next year, just to properly go back to where it started, like the short events that are just a bit of fun. But my running fitness is slowly coming back, so I'm probably going to look for a half marathon later this year. There's one, the Gosport half marathon, I think I've got my eye on, which is down near where Mum is, and I'm also doing one of the Maverick races with Randaware. It's the ambassador meetup, so I'm doing that one down in Dorset, which will be nice. But just a bit of fun.
Excellent. So as we head towards the end of the podcast, it's the time where we head into our quick fire questions. A lot of common questions that I ask most of our guests. So we'll start off with question number one. What is your favorite bit of kit that you like to take with you when you're out running or cycling or
it's got to be my sunglasses. I work with a brand called Sun God, and I have a pair of glasses for every occasion, so probably that.
Sunglasses can be a good set of sunnies. All right, is there a favorite food you like to snack on while out on your bike or on the run?
Be a flapjack, probably.
Flapjack, nice. Are you a Marmite fan? Yes or no?
Absolutely love Marmite. It's one of the best things in the world.
Yes. Okay. So if someone wants to play you in a movie, about your life, who would it be?
Oh, Jennifer Aniston.
Okay. Your favorite place you've ever been to?
Hawaii.
Favorite meal?
Pizza.
Do you have a race you would love to do in the future? Is there a bucket list one?
I like. Oh gosh, that's the question. Yeah, the outdoors triathlon.
Is there, if there was a song about your life, what song would it be?
That song by Micah. They're like, I can be brown, I can be blue, I can be that one.
Yeah, I know the one. Pineapple on a pizza, yes or no?
Absolutely, yes.
And do you have a sporting hero of some sort?
Chrissy Wellington.
Nice. So that's our quick fire questions. That's probably the quickest fire questions we've ever had. Normally, I guess waffle on for ages with an answer. So that was actually quite
The
good.
quick bit. I like that.
No, it was actually quick. However, I do want to ask you, as you ever fancied doing one of the deckers?
Oh, yes, but it'd be very, very far in the future. I just watched James Simpson, like Dan did a daily thing of his when he's just done, and it looked brutal. I've got to be honest, I felt pain just looking at it. So maybe one day.
Nice, because I've got my friends. Obviously, they're the Brutal Events owners, and obviously they're both decker athletes themselves. So I always love watching people put themselves through that days of just agonizing pain. Yeah, it's mad. So moving on to our last bit. So is there any advice you have for someone who may be watching or listening this in regards to eating disorders or mental health in general?
I think it's that whole thing of, I know it sounds cringy, but you're not actually ever alone in anything. I mean, if you haven't got family you can talk to, there's countless charities out there. So I actually called the Samaritans when at some point earlier this year I was just having a really low day, and I think there's so many resources out there that can help you. So reach out for help. There's someone is completely confidential and people don't even know who you are. I think don't ever underestimate how, if you don't sort something out, it can get really, really bad. I think I've had some very low points this year, and there's always an answer. I think it's just reach out for help.
Agreed, and I think talking is the first part of any form of therapy, in my opinion. And my DM's always open for anyone that is struggling with anything at the moment. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on in the world at the moment, and no one should ever struggle alone. If anyone wanted to follow you, where could they find you?
My username on Instagram is Rachel Rutherford, or Pocket Rocket Rach. So yeah.
Okay, I will chuck those links in the description later on. But for the podcast, we'll have a final chat after I've paused. But for the podcast, Rachel, thank you very much for giving your time. It's been fascinating. It's been lovely to get to know you more, and actually hearing your story. And hopefully, who knows, it may just help one person who's listening or watching. So for now, thank you very much, Rachel.
Thank you for having me.
So that was the great Rachel Rutherford. What a fabulous human being she is, and her story of her eating disorder and everything is one that was definitely worth listening to, and there's a lot you can take away from there. I really enjoyed chatting to her and getting to know her better. It was fabulous. But that is the end of another episode. So if you liked what you heard, if you liked all the others, please, if you're an Apple user, give us a review and a rating. On all the other apps, if it's stars, give us a rating. Every time an episode comes out, it does well in the charts, but I need you guys to continue giving me the support, because it's really appreciated. So please like, share, all that sort of stuff. YouTube, get it out there. for others, because who knows, someone may actually get something from it, and we may help someone along the way. But for now, you have been listening to another episode of If My Feet Could Talk. I'm your host, Owen, and until next time. There's another bloody email come through. Anyway, until next time. Catch you later. Bye.